Go. All right. Yes. Oh, Ayana saying dark and rainy too. Yeah, it can be cozy for sure. Taylor saying here and above ground doing shut up and write. Nice. Barb, happy to be here. Taylor, and job hunting. Oh, yeah. So I don't know where you live, but in this part of the world, because I know it's a different season for those of you in the Southern Hemisphere, we are losing our leaves over here, right? And so we've got all the colors changing. And this is what we do as humans too during the autumn, if you're in the autumn phase of your part of the planet. So we have spring where we're growing and outwardly expanding. And then we have summer where the fruits are coming to fruition. And then we have the harvest season. And then as the fruits, the plants have done their job, they've gone and reproduced and all that, then the energy draws inward. That's why the leaves fall, right? The tree goes, I'm going to take some energy inward. We can lose some of the leaves for now. And we go as humans, like into this deeper reflection, right? At this time of year. So with the letting go of this season, there's letting go that can happen on so many levels, right? And maybe I'll do a pod more on letting go specifically. But, you know, in Freedom School, we focus on letting go in October. We do a cleanse for a very sort of like physiological letting go. We do decluttering for that very physical, immediate in your environment letting go. We talk about toxic relationships and toxic situations. We talk about, you know, how limiting beliefs. And so one of the things I wanted to talk with you about today was the belief that we need to have a source outside of us to give us the answers. And that may seem kind of weird coming out of my mouth as a life coach, because I feel like we really need to let go of that idea that the answer is outside of us. And it's like, well, isn't that why people come to life coaches? But here's the deal. No, like a properly trained coach, and I think a very skilled therapist or a professor or a spiritual guide will help you realize that you have that wisdom within you, right? And so that's what I really wanted to talk about today, was this kind of tendency I see for people to really want to look externally. And this makes sense, right? Because in our culture, in the United States, at least, what I can speak to is that we're taught that happiness is outside of us. The answer is with someone more wise. You're not enough. You don't know enough. You don't have enough. You need to like more in order to have that, right? And so it's really important that we remember where all of our wisdom comes from. Okay, so if we're looking at, you know, the name Rebel Buddhist, a lot of people are like, why did you name it Rebel Buddhist? And they're like, I can't imagine. I think it's like an oxymoron, a rebel and a Buddhist. Like, I can't imagine a Buddhist. And I think what they're imagining is like machine guns, like a rebel in guerrilla warfare or something. But that's so not the definition I'm using, right? So in the Google, the one definition of a rebel is a person who resists authority, control, or convention. A person who resists authority, control, or convention. Now, can you see? Let me expand further. So, like, we can have this idea that, the Buddha attained enlightenment and gave us this path, and we should totally follow it because that's the path. But what we're kind of like missing the whole point that the Buddha himself like went and found his own path, right? Great leaders find their own path. They are thought leaders. They step out of convention, right? And so I want you to really consider that you have all the wisdom within you, and that you've been likely in an environment that has taught us that we can't rely on that and that it's not enough, right? And so and now we see all these people kind of blindly following gurus and coaches and other leaders, and even intellectually, like worshiping a professor, right, or a political leader. And it's like we have a tendency to want someone to give us the answers. So when we find someone that we resonate with, it can happen so easily, right? And so when we have that tendency, we can end up saying, all right, I am going to give up my power. We don't even do that consciously, but we don't want to make decisions until we consult with that person. We don't want to, if we're feeling uncomfortable with the situation, say something. And we have all these instances now of, that the Me Too movement helped bring into light even more of transgressions between teachers and students, right? And coaches and students, therapists and patients, right? So I want to make it clear so that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I want to make it clear I've had amazing teachers in my life, right? Like I started meditating in the Tibetan tradition, and in the Tibetan tradition, there's a huge sort of concept of guru devotion, right? And I just want to say that I had amazing teachers that were very ethical. Kirti Tsenchab Rinpoche, Geshe Shultram Gyaltsen, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, right? Like, and then teachers from other traditions as well. And I was actually taught, because of the center, Vajrapani Institute that I lived at, I was taught like some very traditional things, one of which was how to pick a teacher. Right. And I was like, oh, you don't just like pick someone you like. And they're like, no, it's like a thing. You have to like really commit to evaluating that person, to seeing if they are of integrity, if they're ethical. I was told to spy on the people that I wanted to have as teachers. So I would do that. I would like go into the bushes and like spy on them, or like listen through the door, right? To hear how they acted when they thought no one was looking, right? So I feel like having that encouragement to be discriminating and to really evaluate who I chose as a teacher helped me throughout life. I was like 19 at the time, right? But that really helped me throughout life to discover, like, who is it that I want to put my time and energy into if I'm going to have this relationship to begin with? And I will tell you that none of those teachers made me feel like I needed them. Whenever they could tell that I was asking for some definitive answer to something, they would reflect me back to my own practice, right? Asking me, well, what did you experience in meditation when you did this or that? Or what do you think was spurring your reaction to that person, etc.? Like asking me what I already knew, right? The other element is it doesn't mean that you don't do this path alone. It doesn't mean that you never use a coach or a teacher or anything. It's just that we have instead the perception that I don't need them, but I like working with them, right? Like Rabina, who taught me how to meditate, Rabina Cortan, she was like, what the practices are that you're learning are a recipe, right? They're a recipe for how to make a really good cake. And could you figure out how to make a cake on your own? Abso-fucking-lutely, right? You can totally figure that out. But it's a lot easier to make a cake if you can follow a really good recipe. But you don't have to follow the recipe. And you can learn the recipe and then start going out on your own and tweaking it and making it your own, right? So what many of us do with teachings that we receive from teachers, from coaches and everything is we go, this is the way. This is the path. It has to be. It works so well for that person. What all these people are showing you is a reflection of your potential. That's why we're so attracted to it. Ultimately, in my opinion, is we're like, oh, I want that. And it helps us realize that is possible for us. And we need to remind ourselves we don't need to follow that same exact path. You know, one thing that really attracted me to Buddhism, being a rebel myself, was the candor and the confidence with which he said, just try what I did. And if you find it doesn't work, no worries. He wasn't like, try, if you don't like it, something's wrong with you, right? It was like, this is what I found works for me. And I think it works for a lot of people, but if it doesn't work for you, that's okay too. You can still find your own path, right? If y'all haven't read Siddhartha, you have to read Siddhartha. Great book, Herman Hesse, right? So classic. But we are meant to find our own path, even within this context. I'm so grateful for my relationship with my teachers. That relationship for me worked really well, and it was super helpful, and it was not toxic or abusive. It was loving and supportive and full of compassion. I'm just going to pause for a second and give thanks to my teachers that put so much into my learning. And you don't need a guru, right? We need to remember how to tap into our own wisdom. Now, many of you know, after my postdoc, I've gone into a fellowship in psychedelic assisted therapy. And I'm also doing a training with MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, for their MDMA research, right? They're in phase 3 FDA trials now. And one of the common threads through these different trainings is that of the inner healer intelligence, right? I'm just going to refer to it from here on out as inner healer. But that's because in this type of work with the psychedelic assisted therapy, one of the premises is really that the medicine helps that inner healer arise. When we are traumatized, it can be really difficult to access that inner wisdom, that inner healer, right? Or to even recognize when it's present. And however, it doesn't get damaged. That capacity, that wisdom doesn't get damaged because of trauma. It can just be harder to access. And the medicine helps us to access that inner healer. And the assumption is the things that arise in the order that they arise are exactly the things that need to happen to heal. So we can use the analogy of a cut, right? Like when I'm working in the ER and someone comes in with a laceration, I can remove the barriers to healing. I can remove the debris, the dirt, right? I can irrigate it really well. I can provide optimal conditions for healing. I can like approximate the wound edges. But I don't sit there and go like, oh, look at me. This is why you're healing, right? It's like I provided the conditions. And then the body is always moving towards healing, right? We see that whenever we have a simple cut, the body moves towards healing. The psyche does the same thing. It is wanting to move towards healing. This is its inherent tendency, right? We want to move towards wholeness, towards integration. We already are resourceful and whole. We need to remove the obstructions to that, the obstacles, right? So we have a natural tendency to do that. And in our culture in the United States here, we get messages from the media and all kinds of shit telling us that we can't trust that, right? And in many traditions, like you're told you're born flawed, right? So not true. We are already creative, resourceful, and whole. Our body moves towards healing. Our mind moves towards healing. We don't have to do it alone. We can have teachers, we can have coaches, we can have all that, right? But we have to remember we don't need that. And that while we're working with someone, we should be noticing those shifts in us that help us feel that ZG that I talk about all the time, right? That radiant inner confidence. So you may choose to follow a teacher your whole life. I've had clients that work with me for over 10 years now. And if you choose to work with someone for that long, you should be growing over time, learning new skills, seeing real change, right? And not being told that you need them, right? I like to think of the support we receive on our path as providing the optimal conditions, like what I was talking about with the wounds, right? With the wound healing. Pick people that help provide the optimal conditions, right? So there's a Chinese medicine proverb, right? And there's an old wise medicine man who had met a young and talented new practitioner. And the new young guy, he's like, so what have you cured? I've cured so many diseases, like the horrific and persistent X, Y, and Z disease. What have you treated? And the elder says, well, I admit I haven't cured any of those fancy diseases you speak of. You see, my patients don't get sick. Oh, snap. Oh, snap, right? A good medical practitioner helps you to not get sick, right? So they don't make their living off of curing disease after disease in their patients. Similarly, I believe that any coach or spiritual teacher / guru helps you to learn the skills to be able to implement on your own and over time. And if you have that relationship, it's because you love it, you grow from it, you flourish from it, you like it, not because you need it, right? I always have a coach. I may think I need a coach because when I don't have a coach, I don't do as well with my like productivity and managing my mind and stuff, but that's not true. The coach just makes it easier. Having that space where I meet with someone on a regular basis provides the optimal conditions, right? I could do without, but it would be a bit more work, just like following the recipe versus making a cake on your own from scratch without ever having done it before, kind of thing, right? So my coaches always ask me if I'm coming to them with like, give me the answer, please. They're like, well, what do you think you should do? Right. And I'll admit on the other end as a coach, when my clients really want to give advice, I ask like, if you knew the answer, what would that be? Now, that doesn't mean we don't give practical advice and stuff like that, but really, we need to start practicing trusting our own intuition, following our own inner wisdom, right? This innate capacity of ours, we can really see it when we also stop resisting what is. When we're like, this is where I'm supposed to be right now. What's available to me? Then we can more easily access our wisdom, right? So, we want to think about when did I last listen to that inner wisdom, that still small voice, and follow it, right? Like I think of examples where I averted danger because I followed my inner wisdom, right? It was like, holy shit, if I didn't listen to my inner wisdom, then I'd have been fucked, right? I'd have totally been screwed and like gone down that particular alley and who knows what would have happened, for example, right? I can also think about when I was supposed to have, or when I heard that still small voice and didn't listen to it. And what happened, right? It was difficult. It was like, in hindsight, could see, oh, that's what my voice was saying. I knew it. Shouldn't have stayed in that relationship, for example, or something like that, right? It was like, but we need to practice listening because otherwise we don't trust it, right? So think about when were the times that you listened to your inner wisdom? How did that show up for you? For some people, it's a thought. For some people, it's a image. For some people, it's a somatic sensation in their body. And remind yourself of how well things went when you listened to that. And then think about when you didn't listen to it and what happened, right? What happened when you didn't say, wait, what? What should I be doing or not doing instead? And what came from that as well, right? So that's how we learn. We start experimenting with listening to our inner wisdom. And that's how we build that ZG, that radiant inner confidence that this is our truth. Your body knows better than any part of you what is true. Right? This is why, like, Martha Beck teaches the body compass, because our brains can get all distracted by future thinking, by reshaping the past and how we thought that should have gone, by getting stuck in thought loops, but our body is so present in the here and now. And that's why so much of meditation is also like grounding and being present. And we have mindfulness of the body as one of the 4 foundations of mindfulness, right? So I want to close by reading a poem by Maria Sabina. So I don't know if you know who Maria Sabina is. She is one of the, she was the first contemporary Mexican curandera, or sabia, one who knows, that allowed Westerners to participate in the velada, which is their healing ritual where participants ingested psilocybin mushrooms. And so this is a translation, right? So we don't know, like, I don't know who translated it, but this is a translation of some things that she said. Cure yourself with the light of the sun and the rays of the moon, with the sound of the river and the waterfall, with the swaying of the sea and the fluttering of birds. Heal yourself with mint, with neem and eucalyptus. Sweeten yourself with lavender, rosemary, and chamomile. Hug yourself with the cocoa bean and a touch of cinnamon. Put love in tea instead of sugar and take it looking at the stars. Heal yourself with the kisses that the wind gives you and the hugs of the rain. Get strong with bare feet on the ground and with everything that is born from it. Get smarter every day by listening to your intuition, looking at the world with the eye of your forehead. Jump, dance, sing so that you live happier. Heal yourself with beautiful love and always remember, you are the medicine. So how can we start cultivating this ZG, this inner radiant confidence that we all have that's innate in us? It's our birthright, right? We listen to it, okay? So think about, is there a place in your life right now that you're giving up your power? And what is your inner wisdom trying to tell you, right? You are the medicine. You are your own guru. You don't need no stinking guru, right? So let's remember that as we go out. Watch where you might be giving up your power. With a lot of people, it's also it can be something like psychedelics. They're like, I need this to have spiritual insight, right? All of these things just provide optimal conditions to access what we already have access to and that we can access on our own, okay? Okay, my friends, I love you so much. Have an amazing rest of your week. If you want to join us in Freedom School for this whole letting go season, go to joinfreedomschool.com. We're going to be starting our cleanse pretty soon. It's going to be awesome. I would love for you to be there and join us and participate in all of this amazing letting go that we're going to do, okay? I'll see you. Joinfreedomschool.com. Bye, y'all. Ciao. You're welcome. Bye, y'all.